Sure, yeah.
Hope you enjoyed our essential oils deep dive last week.
Oh my God. I love our deep dives.
Me too.
And like, it's also one of those things, like when you're the one working on the episode, you're like rubbing your hands together, like.
That's exactly, especially for that one.
Yes.
That one was very much like, I felt like diabolical, but in a good way.
Yes. Like, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Do you have any housekeeping items?
I don't think so. This comes out the first week of May. In a couple weeks, you're going to get a Patreon preview because I'm moving and cannot be bothered.
Yep, we are overwhelmed. Katie's moving, and all of the stress that comes with that.
After recording today, I'm going to go get some boxes and start.
We might have some.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think we do. Don't get boxes because I think we have a bunch.
But yeah.
Because my house has also been torn apart. So, yeah, we're both, people are now starting to ask me specific baby questions. And I'm like, that's a good question that I don't have the answer to because I am behind.
Yeah, that's how I feel with the move too, where I'm like, it's not quite paralysis, but it's like, I just haven't had enough mental space to like think about what exactly I want. Like I've thought about like little pieces here and there, but then like the reality of like, how do I want to organize the bathroom? Like functionality questions like that. And then figure out between my stuff and PK's stuff, like, yeah, it's just a whole thing.
It is. And it's, I feel like that's one of those things where there's definitely two schools of thought. Like some people are like, I'm just going to wing it and deal with it when I get there.
And surprisingly, I'm not that person.
No, because I really think like I would rather take some time to like dedicate the mental space and come up with a couple really good plans for myself with how I'm going to execute different things. Because man, when that happens, it is like poetry.
Yes. And
when that like works and makes something easier, you're like, I'm the fucking best.
And I'm getting to that antsy point where like now I need to start packing so that I can have something to do with my hands and feel like I'm productive because I'm not exactly like I know where I'm moving and the place I'm moving into. I can start moving things, but I'm not ready to start moving things.
Yes.
But I need to start packing all of my things so that when it does come time to move, I can move and unpack in a coherent way so that it's not all done on the day of the move TM.
Yeah, I was having the thought and I think when we moved, it was like February, which generally is a great time of year for me mentally.
Yeah, you're doing excellent. You're peaking.
Yeah. I was so overwhelmed that I could do nothing. So it was one of those like winging it. I did have a mover that moved like our big stuff, but and we like house to house, they were not super far apart, so it was not a huge problem to like run stuff back and forth, but
which is pretty much what I'm dealing with. Like
and I wound up taking like a bunch of 4-day weekends where I did like Friday, Mondays, and I did that like 3 or 4 weeks in a row, and that was like just enough to where I could also like get away from it, go back to work, clear my head a little bit, and then get back into it and plan for the end of the week.
Yeah, I have done the thing where I booked the cats for their sleepaway camp at the vet so that they don't get lost with the movers.
Great
idea. I set up our installation for internet.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Those are two things that I would absolutely loathe doing.
That was the internet was the easiest thing to do because my new place is eligible for Verizon Fios, so I could do it through my cell phone plan.
Wow.
So it's like bundled and I get like a $25 discount.
Oh, that's so cool.
And like price is guaranteed for 3 years.
Shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
All I had to do was like message PK and I was like, is 500 megabits a second enough? Like, is that many's or no?
How many's is that?
Because he does like computer gaming. I'm like,
yeah. Oh, that's true.
Like,
yeah.
The most I ever use the internet is when I'm streaming on Hulu and then like uploading our episodes.
Yeah.
But
we were fine until COVID, and then it was like, oh, when you have multiple streaming things going on at once and people working with teams, that's a lot.
Yeah. So, yeah, so he was like, no, he's like, even if you were gaming, like, we'd probably be fine with 500. So no.
One of our Patreons was moving out of an apartment one time, and instead of boarding a cat, put said cat in the bathroom, and the cat opened a drawer on the vanity so that the door to the bathroom couldn't be opened, and effectively locked themselves in a bathroom. And it was definitely not done with a plan, because I love him dearly, but he's not.
The Patreon or the cat?
Both.
Oh.
The cat is not the best at being a cat. So it was definitely like an accident, and then it was like, what have I done?
The last time my mom moved, she thought, because she didn't board her cat, which I was like, you should do that when you have movers coming. Like,
especially considering what happened when your mom moved with the cat.
Which time? What are you talking about?
When she lost the cat.
This is what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so she thought that the cat was, like, in her bedroom or something, and then she, like, couldn't find the cat, and one of the movers...
Gotta have eyes on the cat.
Yeah, like, one of the movers said something like, oh, I thought I saw him, and she was like, then why the fuck would you have seen the cat? Like, you weren't in that room. So she freaks out, goes to the new apartment, and then went back to get more stuff, and the cat was just on top of the kitchen cabinets. Which, he's a Maine Coon, he's a huge fucking cat, but he could lay back far enough and flat enough that you wouldn't be able to see him.
Yeah.
And so
he knew. Right. He for sure knew.
And he was just hiding, because there were, like, strange big men carrying stuff in his house. So.
What a cat. What a cat thing.
I know. So yeah, I did those things, so now I can like that's taken care of. I'm getting more structure to my week, but part of that structure also includes not having to edit a new episode. Yeah. So in a few weeks, you guys will hear some Patreon bullshit.
Really good call.
I'm guessing a lot of that intro will get cut.
Whatever. But yeah, like I would say probably this summer, between Katie moving and baby planning and all that bullshit that goes along with it, you'll get probably a couple Patreon previews.
Probably. Or something.
Something. You'll get something. But in the meantime, we're going to give you these great deep dives.
Yeah.
And you're going to love it.
Oh, super pumped. Yeah. Also, there was a hell of a deep dive on Patreon today, so.
Oh. We covered a lot of ground on Patreon today. A lot of weird ground.
You can join Patreon and hear all about all sorts of stuff.
Interesting viruses and bacterias.
Mm-hmm. And who Bob Barker's evil twin is.
Just Bob Barker. It was crazy. It was crazy, and you should listen to it because it was crazy. Speaking of deep dives.
Yeah.
So we've been talking for the last couple months, last few months, on and off about hormones. We're back. We're back today with a couple more hormone topics. I thought, so we've kind of covered these in, like, a tertiary way, because we talked about, like, periods and, what is the other thing we talked about?
Puberty?
Yeah, that was the word I was looking for. It's, like, in my head, and I'm like, teenagers. That's not it. Today we're going to talk about PMS and PMDD.
What is PMDD?
So PMS stands for pre-menstrual pre-menstrual syndrome. I have words.
I was just letting you do it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just needed to flounder for a minute. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. There's also another name for it, late luteal phase dysphoric disorder, but I think that's like an old-timey phase that's like not really used anymore.
That is way harder to say. Late luteal phase dysphoric disorder?
Yes, that's it. That was perfect.
Dysphoric disorder?
How
now, brown cow?
So we're going to cover both of those today. And we will start with PMS. I think pretty much if you're someone who gets a period, you're probably familiar with PMS. 3 out of 4 people who get a period experience PMS.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say 3 out of 4 people get periods. Like,
yep,
I was like,
globally.
Like, wait a minute.
I don't know if that's right.
I'm not a math magician, but I thought it was closer to 50%.
I love the idea of math magician, by the way.
I mean, they might as well be, the way they come up with numbers sometimes.
Yeah, no,
That quadratic equation is
my strong suit.
Hocus pocus for sure.
There are rabbits in hats.
Yeah.
So obviously, PMS are the physical or emotional changes during the days before menstruation.
Okay. Is there like a specific hormone fluctuation associated with that, or is it just kind of like...
That probably would have been good information to include in a hormone episode. You know what I didn't include? The fucking hormones that cause it. Actually, well, you know what? No, I do mention it.
Okay.
Okay. For a second,
I can Google it really quick and we can just,
I'm just gonna
take an intermission.
Flounder this whole episode. PMS is a different experience for everyone. Really, the only metrics for it is it's usually present in the 7 to 14 days before a period.
Oh, cool.
I also saw 5 to 14 days for at least 3 menstrual cycles in a row. And they tend to go away within a few days after the period starts as your hormone levels begin to rise again.
So PMS is like a separate condition? I guess I just assumed, like, I know you just said 3 out of 4 people with periods get PMS, but I guess I just assumed
this is one of those, it impacts a ton of people, and they don't really research it.
I guess I just didn't think, I thought if you have a period, you also have PMS, period, like, end of story. And
no, I was interested when I was reading about this. I was like, because that's what I thought. I was like, everybody gets PMS.
Right, like, it's like the extent of it varies between people, but
the experience of PMS is different for every single person, and some people don't get it at all. Apparently, they're God's favorite because Gob's got some favorites out there who don't PMS.
I might be a favorite because I never had any fucking clue when my period was starting. Because
I never used to.
Had no symptoms leading up to, other than, I guess, existing. I don't know. But
yeah, right before my period would start, I would get symptoms. But other than that, until my 30s, I did not have PMS.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's the thing. I've been on birth control since I was 16.
Yep.
Without pause. So to the extent, like, okay, I stopped my pills on Sunday, and then by Wednesday, my bleeding starts. Yeah, I can feel kind of shitty on Tuesday, but, like, I know why I'm feeling shitty.
Right, like I'm a little crampy, but that's about it.
Right, like, I don't, I can't say that I would qualify that as PMS. I guess is what I'm saying.
So, because I was also on the pill, so obviously PCOS, like, I didn't know when my period was coming. It could be bad, it could not be bad, it could be long, it could be short. I mean, I just never knew, so there was no, and they definitely, and we've talked about this before, there was no conversation about cycle tracking.
Yeah.
None. So and then I was on the pill from the time I was 17 until I was like 30. So in that time, and I was skipping periods, so I had no connection to my period, really.
See, I knew about cycle tracking because there was this random book called, like, My Period Book or something that I found at the library when I was, like, 10 or 11, and it showed you how to track your period and, like, how to create a calendar and track your cycle, and at least to know, like, how long it's usually lasting and like measure or like put a notation so that you know if it's like a lighter flow or a heavier flow or whatever. And like it showed me how to track that. I just didn't know how to read that data.
Like and how to like use
which the book might have explained, but ADHD, I
probably only skimmed it.
But it was a great book. If I can find it on Amazon, I'll put it in our stories.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because it was a great book, especially to have as like a resource. I remember I got it for my ex's daughter when she was like a preteen and like freaking out about puberty because I was like, I don't know why you're freaking out, but like here's a book that you can read that's like written for children,
right?
Going through those changes and like what to expect, and
because it sucks.
Yeah.
Puberty sucks. And I know, like, it wasn't until I went off the pill, I had to, like, fully reacquaint myself with the experience and realize that as an adult, I PMS for 2 full weeks before I get my period.
That's crazy.
And there's, like, a whole progression of symptoms. And, like, depending on how severe the cycle is, how intense the cycle is going to be, impacted, like, the types of symptoms that I had.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I would feel like I was getting sick. I would get, like, congested and have a runny nose and, like, I'd be like, am I getting sick? And I had to start keeping track and writing things down so that I could look back and be like, oh, no, you know what? 2 cycles ago, this same thing happened X number of days before my period. And that's the only way I was able to kind of start predicting when my period was going to hit, was going back and looking at notes. And there's sometimes where I'd be like, I don't know, I'm like kind of feeling like this, where it wasn't even something I could like clearly define. And I'd be like, oh, that's why.
It's that thing of like, it's always on like Instagram, but it's like me like crying at like watching like The Emperor's New Groove, and then 3 days later, like my period marching in, and it's like,
you're like, oh,
right, got it.
That's why.
Yeah, right. Like, because it's this nondescript feeling of like, I don't know, I just feel bad.
I would like go to put my pants on. I'm like, why don't my pants randomly, they don't fit? It would be because I'm bloated because I'm about to get my period. So, again, a thing that just impacts so many people. Researchers think that PMS happens after ovulation because estrogen and progesterone levels begin falling dramatically if you're not pregnant, which is also why when we talked about menstruation way back, your ADHD symptoms are probably worse,
right,
when you're in that PMS period leading up to your period,
right, because of the reduced estrogen,
right,
in your brain,
right, and the progesterone's gonna fuck with everything anyway.
Yes.
PMS symptoms. This is just so vicious. It's just like so offensive and vicious that this is even a thing. So the emotional symptoms: depressive moods, angry outbursts, irritability / mood swings, crying spells, tension and anxiety, confusion, social withdrawal, poor concentration, insomnia, increased nap taking, and changes in sexual desire.
Okay.
So, like, I know the, like, day or two before my period, I am, like, half there. Foggy. My concentration is terrible. Like, it's like I can't process thoughts. It's the craziest thing. I'm in a complete fog. So I read it and I was like, oh.
That's me.
That's me. Physical symptoms: thirst and appetite changes or food cravings, breast tenderness, bloating and weight gain, headache, swelling of hands or feet, aches and pains, fatigue, skin problems and acne, gastrointestinal symptoms, abdominal pain, joint or muscle pain, and alcohol intolerance.
It sounds like COVID.
Yeah, it's horrible. And, you know, it's so funny because, like, I would find myself, because, again, like, in my 30s, it almost felt like I was a teenager again getting my period, because I'd be experiencing things and I would feel like I'm actually, like, doing this research was very helpful because it did, like, clarify some things, because as an adult, you're like, fucking, I'm in my 30s. I don't need to Google PMS. Bloating and weight gain, I would literally, like, my whole body felt puffy. I would just feel like I was retaining water all over the place.
Well, you were.
But if you Google it, it's like, you're having a heart attack, you're in congestive heart failure, you're dying.
Which is cool for somebody with hypertension.
Yes. It's great. Swelling of the hands or feet, same thing.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, when you said that, I was like, isn't, like, feet swelling, like, a super common pregnancy thing, too? Like, especially the later you get in your pregnancy, it's very... Like, you have to put your feet up because you just start, like, swelling.
Right, and, like, retaining fluid.
Right.
And I did find, I will say, like, kind of as an aside, I would sometimes, at the beginning of my period, do, like, the saunas are the ones that are dry. I think, like, the dry heat.
Versus what?
It's like a steam room.
Yes.
Yeah. Excuse me. Speaking of symptoms. And I would find that really did help with, like, the bloating and the water retention. I would do that for, like, 20 minutes once a cycle, and that would help. But yeah, like the fatigue, appetite changes, like having the appetite of like a teenage boy.
Yeah, I would say that especially like the day before that my
Oh,
period happens when I'm on the pill and taking a break for a week, yeah,
I'm a bottomless pit.
I'll run a train on some Cheetos, that's for sure.
You know, Katie and her train running.
That's what it means.
I know for a fact now. And what I also thought was very interesting, women in their 30s are more likely to have PMS.
What?
Yeah.
What the fuck? This thing
Yes.
sucks all of the time. What the hell?
But it also made, because I was like, was I just not paying attention as a teenager? And I'm like,
that's very much my impression of myself as a teenager. Like, I just
Right.
didn't know what
Right.
to pay attention to.
right.
And because you're a teenager, like you said, like, we go through the most changes we have since it being a newborn.
Right.
So, like, so many other things are going on. Like, you're just not, like, I just assumed that I just wasn't in tune with my body.
I think about the fact that, like, we had to go to school every day.
We did. Yep. They made
Like,
sure.
5 days a week, all day. Like, you would get homework and you had to do it by the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you compare that to college where you can kind of make your own schedule and be a gremlin if you want.
Yeah.
Elementary, middle, and high school, like, you're going to school every single day. So the amount of, like, things that you have to keep just, like, going in your head at all times.
Not to mention, like,
plus the social aspect of it.
The social aspect, but also, like, oh, you got to do a sport and you have to have a club and
right, the extra
make sure you get into college and blah, blah, blah.
And the bodily changes and, like, the puberty stuff, like, just the puberty stuff, like, trying to cycle track and, like, keep track of my PMS, like, get the fuck out of here.
Never mind, like, in the early 2000s, the
low-rise
like,
jeans.
Well, low-rise jeans, but also, like, not shame, I guess, but, like,
around
never letting
periods.
anybody know
Yes.
that I had my period, like, that I next to death before letting
Yes.
anybody, male or female, see that I had a pad in my back pocket.
Or hidden up my sleeve like it was drugs.
Yes.
Paranoid somebody was going to see it.
You
Yeah,
gotta
it was
keister
just
it.
like,
That's the thing.
you got to boof the pad to get it into the bathroom. That's the secret. So yeah, it's just like, that blew my mind. But also, like, made sense. I was like, well, now I understand why I have this very...
I don't feel so bad that I feel like I didn't acknowledge anything.
Right. I saw that and I was like, oh, this is because it really is, like, more intense. I'm more likely to be experiencing it now. The offensive part is it may get worse as you reach your late 30s or 40s.
In preparation for menopause, fucking with us. Cool.
Yes. Sorry.
Man, I cannot wait to get a hysterectomy. Holy shit. Holy shit.
It's
Take it out. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
goodbye.
I'm telling
useless organ.
I'm telling you, it's somehow the most useless and most productive organ, and
yeah,
I'm mad at it right now.
You're using it though. You're using yours more than I use mine.
I am using it, but I'm also mad at it.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, I'm not getting my period. Do I have to cramp like I am all the time?
Mm.
Do I constantly have to feel like I'm about to get my period?
And baby's like, you're not cramping. It's just me stomping.
And if you wear tight pants again, I'm going to keep stepping.
Baby's like, I get knocked down and I get up again.
She literally, I swear to God, if I sit in a way that she's constricted in any fashion, or if I wear pants that are even the tiniest bit bunching where she's not comfortable, it is like Kick City. Like, just rage.
Kick City.
Yes. She's like, oh.
There's two sides to Kick City. Rage side and happiness side.
Yeah, she's not
I'm the
air
mayor of
kicking.
happiness side.
Yes.
Yeah.
These aren't like excited air kicks. These are like, bitch, if you don't sit back.
I love that you're like, oh, it's the baby. Meanwhile, if you get water on your sleeve, you have a breakdown.
Yes. Oh, it comes from nowhere strange. I know why she's like this. I definitely know why she's like this.
All of a sudden.
Yeah.
If she's upset, I have to know about
all right,
it.
Fine. I get it, but I don't like it. I'm in the middle of something. Plus, every time I stand up, she reminds me that I have to pee.
Yeah.
So these PMS symptoms are especially true for people who have a mood that's sensitive to hormone shifts.
Like ADHD or
Yeah, that would be an example. Like maybe you get extra ragey around your period and your emotional dysregulation gets worse with
Cool,
these hormonal shifts.
Noted.
Hmm. um, and the more, like, if your PMS symptoms are getting really intense as you age, it could be the sign of a bigger issue for something like fibroids, which, in case someone's unaware, they're benign growths in the lining of the uterus. And they can cause heavier bleeding, and those are more common after age 30.
That's why I had that ultrasound last
Right.
year, because I thought I had fibroids because I was having like weird breakthrough bleeding from
Right,
my-
right.
while on the pill.
Right.
And I have a family history, but I don't have them yet. Anyway,
Maybe someday.
knock on wood.
Not right now. And endometriosis, which is often marked by pain that could last all month, but it's also more common in those in their 30s or 40s.
Wow, shout out to Bindi Irwin then, because she's like 23 or something.
Yeah. I mean, some people wind up with it a lot sooner.
Yeah.
I wondered, like, because I do get, I just feel like I'm inflamed. Like, my hips hurt, my back hurts. It's my inner tube of fire that I wear.
One of the posts by one of the accounts I shared when we talked about PCOS talks, I think it's called The Happy Pelvis. They have a whole bunch of posts, but they talk about, like, in particular, pelvic pain associated with, like, PCOS and I think also endometriosis. But yeah, like, they talked about that in particular because it is kind of like, I don't know, like, my hips just hurt.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not like, I think if it was like, oh, well, you need a hip replacement, like, if it was some sort of, like, arthritic or joint issue, it'd be certainly a lot easier to diagnose because then you could see it on an x-ray.
Right.
Like,
no, it definitely is like an inflammation. So there's like a muscle in the middle of your butt cheek is where I feel it, piriformis pain. So I've had to go back and like read it in
I
my
know you said
notes.
butt cheek, but I pictured butt crack and I was like, why would we have a muscle there?
That's not what that is.
I don't think I've ever clenched my butt crack muscle.
Just close your crack really hard. Just squeeze really hard and close your crack.
That's what Kegels are really exercising.
That's what it feels like sometimes.
I've got a high crack.
That's a Patreon story one day.
Or a Bob's Burgers reference.
Yes.
Or both.
No, I get like, it's almost similar to like a sciatica. So the sciatica will run all the way down the back of your leg.
Mm-hmm.
The piriformis pain is like in the middle of your butt cheek, but it is a similar like burning. And when I'm about to get my period in the 4 or 5 days before, I will sometimes get really bad piriformis pain.
Oh.
And one time I thought I was pregnant. I was like, I've never had this in my PMS before because I went back and checked. It's just one of those new PMS symptoms in my 30s that I get sometimes. And now in pregnancy, I get it all the time on both sides. So no, the inflammation, it's kind of like with that, like feeling puffy. Like I just feel like when I get my period, like it's like a whole body inflammation. Like my skin is sensitive and like I'm retaining water and I'm puffy and my joints hurt, and it really does, like, to me it feels like a systemic thing where it never used to feel that way when I was a
that is such
teenager.
Like, okay, researchers, here's your call to action. Figure out why that is necessary. Like, biologically, I want to know the biological reason, like, evolutionarily speaking, why we need to have these much more severe symptoms in our 30s. Like, is it because we're running out of eggs?
Do you need to really warn me? I know how old I am.
Right. Like, I'm like, there's gotta be a reason for it.
Can we just set up a text message alert system? Can I just get a text?
The presidential alert system.
Yes.
But for PMS research.
Yes. Or just like, you know, if I'm getting my period because I'm not pregnant, just shoot me a text, uterus, and just be like, hey, here comes that period. That's all I need. I don't need 2 weeks of PMS.
That's fair.
I don't need piriformis pain or nipple pain or whole body inflammation. Brain fog. No, thank you.
It's like a weird retributive payback for like feeling really hot about yourself those 2 days of ovulation.
Yeah.
2 weeks prior.
Yeah. And that's what would kill me is like with the increased appetite and like water retention, like I would have a weight spike.
Yeah.
No sooner would I come back down from that and I'd be like, okay, all right, back on track. Woo! PMS starts again. And I'd be like, this is garbage. This sucks.
That's the thing that's like we women or menstruating people have 1 week per month.
Yeah.
That they're normal. Like even keeled, no issues, no complaints.
Basically, you don't have a baseline at that point.
Correct.
The baseline is constantly changing.
Yes.
Not only is it constantly changing like on a monthly basis with this nice little cycle of things that happens, but also your period is not the same as it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like what, how do I, it's that video that I sent you where that lady was like,
yes,
I can't be expected to
yeah, you want me to, clean the house, buy the groceries, cook the food, clean up after the food,
clean the cabinets,
do the laundry, not only do the laundry, but then fold the laundry and put it away, then have children, raise children. We're not even talking about me having to get a job to pay for all of that. Like what?
Plus I gotta have a period on top of that?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Unsubscribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too many things.
Yeah, she got a point.
Yeah, too many things. And I know that's also when I get like edgy and my ADHD is worse, my anxiety is worse right before my period. So yeah, it's no joke. PMS is no joke.
Yeah. Well, plus like even just having those moments where your ADHD is worse, maybe for whatever reason your meds just aren't hitting the right way or whatever, adding to it that your symptoms are actually worse.
Yeah, or you're physically uncomfortable.
Right. Like it makes it so much easier to, I think, especially with a late diagnosis, go into, I'm terrible, I'm just bad at this. Like, and to not chalk it up to, oh, this is just PMS or whatever.
When I went off the pill and started experiencing these things, I was like, I'm being such a baby with this. Like, I just need to focus harder or whatever. And like really was like shitting all over myself.
It's so easy to do.
And then eventually got to the point where I was like, I started realizing just how different it was from when I was a teenager. And I remember saying to my spouse at one point, I was like, this is really like every cycle, I have a solid 2 days that are like debilitating. Mm-hmm. Like the pain is so intense that I'm feeling and I'm so uncomfortable.
Is this before you went on the infertility treatments?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was just like my regular, and then it was even worse.
Right.
After taking the letrozole, because then you're taking something that's thickening your uterine lining. So the period that you get is like even more intense.
Right.
So it was like, I know I mentioned it in the one episode, but like there was one night we were supposed to go out and my period hit and I was like doubled over.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even stand up straight. And I was like, this is those places that are giving people sick time for, a couple days every cycle, that it should be mandatory because I cannot believe how much it takes out of me every cycle. It's crazy.
Yeah. And even if it doesn't, like, so when I choose to get my period, which I'll probably do this coming week so that I don't have to worry about needing to have my period, because I usually do it like once a quarter, but I'll probably do it this week so I don't have to deal with it while I'm moving. And I'll do it like before I go on vacation so that I know I'm not going to have like any spotting or whatever. Yeah. But so even when I do get my period, I'm not super debilitated. I will probably have like a day and a half or so of pretty intense cramping.
Right.
Where like I'll be at work and I'm like, am I about to shit my pants?
Right. You're like bloated and there's like pressure and cramping.
Right. But... And so it's like that feeling, like, which is how I described it to PK, was like, it feels like you need to find a bathroom to go poop. Yeah. But that cramping feeling is in the front of your body instead of the back of your body. So like, it's obviously not poo.
Right. Or maybe it's both.
Right. Right. But I just like, I'd get that feeling like every so often, usually like at work. But it's not like I'm not taken out by it. Right. But that being said, like it is still disruptive, and I saw a comedian that was like, "Look, I'll still do everything I'm supposed to do, but like I should feel free to like talk about what I'm going through. Like if Janice from HR wants to tell me that I was 5 minutes late today, I want to look Janice in the eye and say, yeah, because I went through a tampon in the hour and a half between getting out of the shower and coming into work, and I had to stop and change it because my flow is really heavy today, Janice. What's your problem?
Thanks for asking.
Like, I want to be free to talk about it because it is a fucking inconvenience.
It's awful, and I know we mentioned this in the period episode, but I used to have this attitude like people are just being dramatic. Mm-hmm. It is. I just can't get over how different it is, and it's different from when I was on the pill.
I've had those times where even on the pill, where your period is still lighter than it would be without being on the pill. Like, I've had days where I've done that, where I've like changed my tampon and then I go to the bathroom like an hour later and I'm like, why? Yeah, like, why am I needing to change this out already? That's new. And like, it surprises me where I'm like, all right, sorry, lady. Jeez.
Yeah. Being pretty impatient with this.
Yeah. If I had known you had something important to say.
Goddamn.
But it is that thing where I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But it's not every time. Like, you know, and it's that kind of thing where I'm like, I feel like also probably my own hesitancy to like look into it more is that thing of like, well, if they're just going to tell me like, well, make sure you track what you eat and keep track of when you go to bed and take your temperature to the 100th degree with your looper pooper temperature thermometer thing.
A basal thermometer, but yes. Yes, Katie, the looper pooper. That's exactly what we're going to call it.
A rectal thermometer.
I do remember one day telling you that something about it being in my mouth, and you were like, you put it in your mouth? I was like, yeah. It doesn't go? No. Oh. Because I thought the same thing. Basal temperature, I just figured I was goosing myself first thing in the morning. Turns out no.
Yeah, no, so like if it's the prospect of being told, well, you have to keep track of all these things because if you don't, then we can't help you. And it's like, oh, forget it.
But also don't track it on an app because then we're going down the whole Roe v. Wade getting overturned and being monitored rabbit hole. But anyway.
Anyway.
I'm just going to scream after this. Some people report that after pregnancy, their cramps improved. The theory being that your cervix isn't as tightly closed as a Cheerio. So your flow might be able to like flow more freely with fewer uterine cramps.
Okay. Well, and yeah, your uterus has expanded and done like a whole birth contraction. Right. Even theoretically with a C-section, most people go into labor before having the C-section.
You're still laboring.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. PMS may happen more often in people who have high levels of stress, a family history of depression, or have a personal history of either postpartum or depression.
Cool.
Yeah, isn't that fun? Wait till I get to this fun part. About half of the people who need relief from PMS also have another health problem, which will get worse while they're PMSing. Including but not limited to depression and anxiety, which obviously we know that there are lots of symptoms that overlap. Mm-hmm. So your symptoms of those, which are going to be similar to what you're experiencing in PMS, maybe that much more pronounced.
Okay.
Also, people with that like chronic fatigue syndrome also say that their symptoms get worse before their period. They are also more likely to have heavy bleeding and also early or like premature menopause. Fun.
Cool.
Yeah. Irritable bowel syndrome. So IBS obviously causes cramping, bloating, gas.
Well, and inflammation.
Inflammation can also be worse right before your period. Bladder pain syndrome, which I've never heard of.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I guess they're more likely to have painful cramping. It just real casually in the research was like also seizure disorders, people with migraines, asthma, and allergies get worse.
Getting real casual with the asthma and allergies. Like, not that asthma is anything to sneeze
at.
I hate myself. What a good dad joke, though. But like, those are extremely common and generally speaking, I think pretty easy to control in most people. So your allergies get worse, or your allergies make your PMS worse?
No, I think what they're saying is if you have allergies, your allergies will feel worse. Which, I mean, that kind of tracks. Like, I would feel like I had a head cold sometimes when I got my period. Like, super congested, runny nose. So, yeah. And obviously we know ADHD is also going to get worse. Not that it was on the list, but I added it.
Of course not. Why would they?
Why would they include that?
Women and ADHD? No.
That's not a thing. PMSing? Do your own research.
That's me shitting on the establishment.
I love it.
With my ideas.
Are you telling them to eat your farts?
Yes, eat my farts.
That's going to be one of my favorite pod moments. That's what Bart Simpson says.
Right?
Shorts? Yeah! And then they say, like, you know, if your PMS symptoms are interfering with your life and you decide to seek medical treatment, it'll depend on, like, the symptoms that you're experiencing. They may recommend medication. Obviously, you're going to go through that whole bullshit of no matter what's wrong with you, they tell you diet and exercise, which is like, what the fuck is that going to do?
Jerk me off.
That was really nice, Katie.
You're welcome.
So I just feel like you're better off going to somedays.com.
Oh, yeah.
With your 20% off promo code, the bar is high.
Pew, pew, pew.
For some, like, more natural ways to ease period pain, because I just feel like Tylenol and a heating pad are only going to do so much.
Yeah.
And
and also some days has, like, stuff for PMS, like your whole cycle.
Specifically, yes.
Yeah.
Like things that are shaped in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or, you know, certain essential oil scents that will be soothing to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we learned in our essential oil episodes, that's probably what's helping, is just that you're finding a smell soothing. It's not pseudoscience.
Right. Which is, like, if you find comfort in that and it helps you to relax so that you can take a nap that, like, helps you to feel refreshed so that you can handle the executive dysfunction bullshit or whatever that
so much worse
going on.
Yeah. No, totally. And on a personal level, I always recommend keeping a journal of symptoms. Especially if you're dealing with something that's causing long or irregular cycles. It just made it where if I was feeling something, I could flip through and say, oh, okay, so 2 cycles ago, 6 days before my period started, that's how I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what this is. And then I look at the calendar and be like, oh, yeah, I'm probably about to get my period.
That's why our dream is to design a day planner.
Yes.
But
and we could have a whole thing just for, like, period tracking. So, oh, man. Symptom tracking. So that was PMS. Here comes PMDD.
Oh boy. Also, join our Patreon if you want us to get closer to being able to design that planner.
Yeah, because we want to do that.
Yeah.
We would love to do that. I love the thought of including just, like, a thing for, like, period tracking.
Yeah, or, like, just, like, anything like, just a little box of, like...
It was such a game changer for me to be able to go. It's validating.
Yeah.
I'm flipping through and I'm like, oh, that's, like, I would be thinking to myself, oh, I'm, like, just feeling kind of like this. And I would scroll through and be like, that's exactly what I said last month, or, 6 weeks ago, I said the same thing. Yeah. So, no, it's definitely, I think, the way to do it, personally. I'm going to give the heads up. PMDD, I was a little more tired putting these notes together, so little less cohesive, but we're going to try our best.
Cool.
So PMDD, which, as we said earlier, stands for pre-menstrual dysphoric disorder. So less than 5% of women, people with periods, I should say, of childbearing age get a more severe form of PMS, PMDD. PMDD was only added to the DSM in 2013 and the ICD, which is like the International something diagnostic, in 2016. But like if you read back, like Hippocrates was writing about things that sounded like PMDD back in ancient Greece.
Yeah, I knew about PMDD in my 2002 health class, so...
Yes, but it wasn't an official thing until 2013.
I'm gonna go yell at a car again. That's what I'm gonna do.
You should try and show everybody what PMDD is like by yelling at a car.
Yeah, I screamed at a car in traffic the other day, folks.
She did. And I can't judge her because I've also done it.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I'm sorry, but if a pedestrian has the right of way, you better not be in a fucking car telling the pedestrian to watch where they're going.
Yes.
Because I will fight you.
Yes. Love it.
Like Don Quixote.
Just like that. Similar to PMS, PMDD.
Sorry. Don Key gives a shit.
Quee gives a shit. Oh, God. So similar to PMS, PMDD is also going to rear its ugly head in the week or two before your period starts as your hormone levels begin to fall after ovulation if you're not pregnant. PMDD mood symptoms are only present in menstruating people, which means symptoms don't occur during pregnancy, after menopause, or in women who have anovulatory cycles, which that's what was happening to me. I was not having an ovulatory cycle.
Oh, okay.
And I'm assuming it has to do with the hormone shifts that are happening after ovulation.
Mm-hmm. So if with folks with PMDD, are they just having like a more drastic hormone shift, and that's what's causing the more severe
it's
symptoms?
more their sensitivity to the hormone shifts. And obviously we know like other mood disorders typically persist across all your different reproductive phases and are independent of your menstrual cycle. So like some things might be more exacerbated during your menstrual cycle, but it's not like their PMDD is only appearing during that PMS period before your period starts.
Gotcha.
And it's likely caused by like a combination of factors. So they're thinking there's likely a neurosensitivity to those normal reproductive hormone changes with each menstrual cycle. So everybody else is doing it. Everybody else is experiencing it. Doing it was like a really weird way to put it. Sorry. But people that are experiencing PMDD are they have like a neurosensitivity that makes them extra sensitive to that.
Damn, that sucks.
In 2017, researchers at the National Institute of Health. Do
you want a drink?
National Institutes of Health. I might need a beer to finish this. I'm not actually drinking beer.
Yeah, the non-alcoholic. Tune into Patreon.
Yes. It's fake beer, but it makes me feel like a real person. National Institutes of Health in 2017 discovered that people with PMDD have genetic changes that make their emotional regulatory pathways more sensitive to estrogen, progesterone, as well as other chemical derivatives.
Damn. Is it hereditary?
There is a genetic component to it. And they're thinking that increased sensitivity could be responsible for these PMDD symptoms. There is some evidence also to suggest that things like environmental stress, family history, a history of violence or trauma, smoking, the presence of other mental disorders can make you more susceptible to PMDD.
That makes sense.
So I pulled this from the DSM because they have like different criteria that they break into like different groups. So there's like mood-based ones.
Okay.
I'm just going to read this through because it's going to be easier than me trying to like give the Reader's Digest version.
Okay.
So, criteria B, so you have to have one or more of the following symptoms. A marked, affective, lability, in parentheses, which is going to be more helpful, mood swings, being suddenly sad or tearful, or increased sensitivity to rejection. Rude.
A marked what labidity?
Affective lability.
Not liability.
Nope. Lability. Lability. I feel like Creed. Bow body. Yes. Bow body. Lability. I don't even know that word. Pseudonymous. Yeah. Fuck. Increased. Nope. That's not increased. That's irritability. Irritability or anger or increased interpersonal conflicts. Depressed moods, feelings of hopelessness or self-deprecating thoughts.
They're just describing ADHD. Like late diagnosed ADHD in particular.
Anxiety, tension, and or feelings of being keyed up or on edge. This sounds like my baseline. But all of those symptoms start with marked. So it's like a sharp increase in these feelings, like a sudden onset of these feelings. And then the criterion C, I don't know why there's B and C but not A, but whatever.
It's like in Home Alone when the brother Buzz is like, first, B and D. Like he's going.
That's how this feels. Yeah. I was like, okay, B and C, but no A, whatever. So there also needs to be one or more of the following symptoms to reach a total of 5 when combined with the present symptoms from criterion B. Whatever. Because this is from the DSM, so it's just like a whole diagnostic tool.
Right.
So, decreased interest in usual activities, subjective difficulty in concentration, lethargy, easy fatigability, or marked lack of energy, changes in appetite, overeating, or specific food cravings, hypersomnia or insomnia, a sense of being overwhelmed or out of control, and physical symptoms such as breast tenderness, or breast swelling, joint or muscle pain, a sensation of bloating or weight gain. So if you think you have PMDD...
So if you have any combination of those five of those things...
Yeah, it says you have to exhibit at least 5 of the 11 main symptoms.
Oh, okay.
And one of them has to be the mood-related symptom.
Gotcha.
Where you're, really depressed or really irritable or angry or experiencing a lot of interpersonal conflicts, which I thought was an interesting way to describe that.
Yeah, but accurate. And I'm surprised that they don't consider we're not using that as a more often as a way to describe like irritability or emotional dysregulation as like, I'm yelling at a fucking car for
couldn't be me
telling somebody to watch where they're going.
Yeah.
Like this poor old lady who's just trying to cross the street.
Yeah. So I thought that was really an interesting way to put it because I think it also is like you may read that and be like, because sometimes having the awareness to recognize like mood-based symptoms is hard. Yeah. That's why I'm still shaken up from when we did emotional dysregulation. I still can't believe.
And how many times, when we were teenagers, it was a common insult. Oh, are you just PMSing? Garet just gave me a mean look. I didn't say it to you.
I'm just reminiscing. So your doctor is obviously going to want to talk to you about your health history. You do a physical examination. You keep a calendar and a diary of your symptoms. I did think it was interesting.
Which is the other argument in favor of, like you said, having a diary of your symptoms or keeping it in a day planner or something so that you can go to your doctor
prepared
and have it written down, which can also help you like not lose your words or even like your train of thought. 100%. Like you have it. I'm always better if I have something like physically written down, even though if I never look at it again, if I've like used my hand to write it out instead of typing it out, especially.
I remember it better.
Yeah, same. And I'll be able to like read it a lot faster if I'm like skimming my own notes.
Yes. So it's like you remember writing it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, it is, if you're not sure, I would say try to do it for 6 months maybe.
Oh, for sure. Like, it's duration, like the type of flow that you're having, plus like other things that are going on. I found it extremely helpful and validating to be able to read through and be like, okay, this is
Yeah.
probably what I can be expecting. Or when there was like new symptoms coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Or like sometimes it was funny because um when so I like had IUI and was experiencing early pregnancy symptoms the same time as I started on Zoloft. So when I started experiencing things, because when you go through infertility treatments, you're not you get kind of jaded. So like
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to read into anything because then you feel like a idiot when your period comes. You're like, "Oh, how stupid of me to like get my hopes up and think that's what was happening." So,
Which, I mean, to be fair,
it's
people get their hopes
self-preservation.
up. Yeah, like people without going through fertility get their hopes up too. It's
Right, right, right.
not you're not alone in that, but it can feel very alone.
Oh, yeah. So it just like I definitely got to the point where I was just like very callous to it and
Yeah.
went into it like with the expectation that no cycle would be successful.
Well, and especially around the holidays, it's kind of like,
The worst.
yeah, like everybody, like, don't get me wrong, as a person who loves Christmas, being able to announce either an engagement or a pregnancy around that time of year would be like primo for me, which is probably an indication that that's not what will happen in my life.
Have you thought about being due in August?
Yes.
So far, I don't recommend it.
But the thing is, I would just get one of those sprinkler things like the giant unicorn, and then I'd just have a cold hose bath that I'd park under with like a lemonade
Yeah.
all summer.
Yeah, it's I definitely had myself fully convinced like it wasn't going to be successful. And I could see in my cuz I went back and was like reading my notes and I was writing like, "Oh, I'm really queasy."
Mm.
But I looked it up and that's a symptom of starting Zoloft. So I had myself fully convinced that everything that I was experiencing, these were all because of the Zoloft. Oh, I'm constipated. Zoloft can cause that. Zoloft can also cause that. I'm really tired. I mean, and they were all legitimate symptoms of starting on a new medication. People were starting to ask me, like, oh, like you seem kind of like I was at the gym and was like struggling. And told people, oh, I started a new medication. I'm just a tough adjustment. Um, so it is good to give yourself some context and be able to read that and be like, I see what's happening. I see what this is.
And it's worth it, to also, to the extent that, not canceling out, but like verifying that those are potentially something to do with something else going on.
Right.
Oh, my medication changed. Or even the manufacturer of the medication I've been on this whole time has changed. That just happened with my Ritalin. It changed to a different manufacturer. And it's the kind of thing where I've had to ask, like, is my Ritalin working the way it did before? Or am I just not good at focusing this week? I'm pretty sure I'm just not good at focusing this week. But
I mean, that's also the case sometimes.
well, exactly. Like
Yeah.
the weather is changing. Like my eating is all over the place because the weather. Like when the seasons change, I was just talking about it with my dietitian. Like my diet changes when the seasons change, especially in spring and fall, because now when the sun's not going down until after 7 p.m., it'll be like 6:30 and still light out, and I'm like, oh, I'm not hungry, it's fine.
Yeah, we eat way later now.
Right, and then it gets to be like 8 o'clock, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to cook dinner.
Yep.
But in the fall, yeah, like in the fall, it's the opposite where I get home from work and I'm immediately eating dinner.
Oh yeah, it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, I could go for dinner. I just ate lunch, but it is dinner time. It's almost dark.
And like she and I, my dietitian and I were talking about it. Registered dietitian, not an Instagram life coach bullshit.
Educated dietitian.
Yeah, somebody who has to maintain a license.
Yeah.
But we were talking about it, and she was basically like, okay, but like just make your dinner at the same time, and then put it in the fridge so that
Don't
you
talk
have it
to me about a schedule
already ready. But like basically treat yourself like, almost like you would a toddler, like, okay, well, give me 3 bites. And then usually if I start eating, then I'll finish my meal.
I'll, like, have a meal.
But, like, yeah, and she's like, because that way you don't get to it being, like, 7:30 at night and being like, oh, I don't feel like making a whole mess in the kitchen or whatever.
Right.
She's like, just make it, and then it's done, and you can at least have a little bit of a balanced meal and then have the rest for leftovers. But it's that kind of thing where it's, like, just keeping track of those little things to be like, yeah, I feel really tired, but, you know, I wasn't really hungry this week, and I wasn't eating. But, you know, we've had all these parties at work, so I've been having huge lunches or something.
Or I've been, like, feeling kind of queasy, and then you realize you had a stomach bug. Or I was writing in mine how I was feeling run down for a couple days, and then I was like, I don't know why I feel so sick, because I had fucking COVID, and I didn't realize it. So it is totally...
Especially, like, the holidays, like, it's just stressful in general. Your oven decided to shit the bed.
What a time that was.
So it's just like those little things are worth, and I think that's why for me having a written day planner is so helpful, because it is so easy to see in context what else is going on. Like this month I feel like I have doctor's appointments coming out my ass.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, I have some, and like dentists, like just regular checkup things.
But
like,
sometimes they all wind up landing within like 4 weeks of each other, and you're like, what have I done?
Exactly. Like,
why did I do this?
Like an ill person suddenly, and I'm like, well, no, it's just like random checkup stuff that like is all falling at the same time while moving. And it's great.
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. No, it really is. And when you also think about how environmental stressors can impact what kind of period you have.
Yeah.
And how bad your PMS is, or are you like super stressed and you're skipping a period? Like, there's definitely things don't exist in a vacuum, and you feel things on a whole body basis a lot of the time.
Which we talked about is why they don't research our shit anyway.
Yeah, because we don't experience real things.
Nope.
They do define like PMDD into like 2 different categories, I guess. So there's core PMD, they're calling it. Pre-menstrual disorder. Okay.
Is this like ADD/ADHD or whatever? AD/HD?
I don't know, because I didn't really read this closely. I just copy and pasted it. So we're going to find out together.
Okay.
Core PMD has 6 characteristics, all mainly focusing on the cyclical nature of PMDD and its typical onset pre-menses tracked over the course of more than 2 menstrual cycles. Can
you say that again?
Yes.
Thank you.
Core PMDD has 6 characteristics, all mainly focusing on the cyclical nature of PMDD and its typical onset pre-menses tracked over the course of more than 2 menstrual cycles. That should have been at least 2 sentences, and they packed it all into one.
Yeah. Thank you for repeating it, because I would have had to rewind the episode when I listened to it.
What?
Okay, so they're focusing on the cyclical nature of PMDD tracked over the course of 2 menstrual cycles.
Yes.
Okay.
The 4 classified variant PMDs involve more unexpected variables. Like okay. So that was the core PMD.
Okay.
PMD. Variant PMD involved more unexpected variables that cause the onset of premenstrual distress, such as like where you have symptoms of another pre-existing psychological disorder that could be heightened as a result of PMDD onset. So core PMD, I'm assuming from what I'm gathering from this, is like the more
like just
traditional
the
PMDD
stuff.
where you have these things that are strictly caused by like it's its own thing. You're stable the rest of the time, and then when you get your period, that period leading up to your menstruation starting in the beginning of your period is a wild time because you have these symptoms coming on.
Right, but you're otherwise like not on Zoloft or an SSRI.
Right, or like you're stable otherwise.
On any other sort of, I guess it sounds like a mental health medication or treatment.
Well, I think so ultimately, and I'll get into treatment in a minute, but the variant is when you've also got these other pre-existing conditions that could be making it that much worse, where it's making your symptoms worse, it's making your pre-existing condition worse.
Gotcha. Okay.
So PMDD is primarily considered like a mood disorder that's associated with the onset of menstruation. Obviously, like I said before, pregnancy, menopause, hysterectomies are all going to cause menstruation to stop, which is then going to stop that whole hypersensitivity to these hormones if you're not having that hormonal
But what if
fluctuation.
Why is having a uterus have to do with it when it's your ovaries that are producing these hormones?
Maybe they're looking at it from the perspective of hysterectomy would be taking your ovaries as well.
Oh, so like a total.
Like a menopause.
Yeah,
type
a total
thing.
hysterectomy.
Right. Oh, and there was also mention like my thought would be that there would be a higher rate of postpartum depression with those who have PMDD, but they said that there is no higher prevalence in PMDD versus controls with postpartum depression, which I thought was interesting. But they do say that PMDD can get worse following a pregnancy.
So your cramps won't be as bad, but your emotional dysregulation will be off the charts.
You will have a mood disorder.
But not have increased prevalence of postpartum depression?
Yeah.
Are we just not researching postpartum depression?
Probably.
Is there
Are we not researching anything? Probably.
Yeah, I wonder.
Is it anecdotal? Probably.
Right, like, oh, you're nursing? Sorry, you're ineligible for this study. Like,
there was another review that suggested that patients with bipolar, whether it was 1 or 2, do have a higher incidence of PMDD, which I guess would be considered like variant.
It's interesting. That was what I was picturing when you were describing the variant one, because that is based on my extremely limited knowledge of bipolar disorder. It is heavily, like, there's significant mood swings associated with it.
I mean, of course, if you're already experiencing those, something like a major hormonal shift, if you're already like super sensitive to that, would be
when they don't test drugs on people with these types of hormonal shifts every month.
You know how things are. Also, seasonal affective disorder, you know, any kind of general anxiety disorder are often something that is co-occurring with PMDD. Treatments.
Oh boy. Get your organs removed, evidently.
Oh my God, remember the ovarian drilling? Oh,
yes. Is that
I'm still mad about that? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't remember reading that last night.
My mom also, we were talking about something and she described an ovary as a polyp, which was...
No, thank you.
She was like, all I could think to describe it is like, it's like a polyp. And I was like,
I'll stick with almond.
I hate that.
Almond.
Have you seen, like, one of our listeners sent me a picture of like a anatomy drawing from a textbook, and it looked like when you blow bubbles and it's like the swarm of little bubbles. That's what it looked like, which is not what an almond is. I was picturing I was like, I don't know.
And in case anybody doesn't know, that's not an almond.
I was picturing something more
it
of
didn't even taste like almond,
like an egg.
Yeah,
like smooth.
Well, yeah, because like the drawings that they're showing us so much of the time, it is like 2 eggs, and then it's attached to the fallopian tubes.
They like censor the drawings that they use in like pop culture or like those infographics in order to like make them more palatable or whatever the fuck for the general public.
I almost screamed.
Men.
Yes.
But like, yeah.
Finding out that ovaries are not attached to the fallopian tubes. Excuse you, why? Why are they not?
Yeah.
Why are we trusting these eggs to just fucking float?
Yeah, that
it's
makes
crazy.
No sense to me and makes me so afraid of having a
liver
pregnancy.
Baby.
Yeah, that's like outside my uterus and attached to like my colon by mistake.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Treatments. So SSRIs are like the number 1. Specifically, sertraline, fluoxetine, and paroxetine.
Okay.
I don't know what those are. I know sertraline is Zoloft.
Oh, okay. And do they take those only during that PMDD period?
There's different approaches.
Okay.
So, people taking SSRIs to ease PMDD generally reported about a 50% alleviation in symptoms.
Wow.
That's significant.
That's huge,
That's
yeah.
a significant.
That makes it, I think, probably way more manageable so that you're...
Right. Because even, like we were talking about with Zoloft before, it's not curing me of anxiety, but it's taking the edge off.
Yeah, like Concerta doesn't cure my ADHD, but it does allow me the opportunity to use skills that I work on with my therapist.
Right.
So that I am more successful in like benefiting from what Concerta does allow me to do, which is like executive functioning things and like finishing one task at a time.
Yeah, like
which I for sure struggle with.
I don't not have anxiety, but I can keep my head above water.
Yes.
And I don't feel like I'm drowning all the time.
Right, and can like you get that opportunity to take your breath and assess a situation before just immediately reacting.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are two different approaches. One is having people take it daily, and the other is luteal dosing. So they're taking it 2 weeks before menstruation and then stopping it when their period starts. Which I really feel like, I mean, they tell you to prepare to be taking an antidepressant for like up to a month before you're, it's like 2 to 8 weeks.
That happened to PK. He was on one and he ended up having an allergic reaction, but he didn't have the allergic reaction till like a month or 6 weeks.
Oh my God, that's so frustrating.
But it was otherwise like reacting really well.
Yeah.
Like was getting excellent benefits from the medicine.
Right.
And then broke out in a rash all over his body.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
And to be on it for that long, you expect an allergic reaction is going to be like ASAP.
That's just it. But yeah, no, it takes because it took that long to like build up enough
a blood level,
system.
to like have that reaction.
Yeah.
Both of these schedules are similarly effective. So, there were like some other studies that showed maybe better symptom control with the continuous dosing, which logically makes sense to me.
Yeah, because then also you're not guessing, like unless you would have to have an ovulation test,
right? A very regular period in order to be able to do that.
Yeah,
and which
is probably why they're having that slight difference in efficacy findings, because it would be like I'll just take it every day.
And that would be my attitude, is like I don't want to.
Even if you want me to add like 5 milligrams of Lexapro 2 weeks before my period, but have this baseline of
right, like whatever. Up my dose.
Yes, like that seems a little bit more reasonable to me than just going on and off every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I would never want to do that.
That's and also so easy to lose track of, I feel like.
Too easy. Especially, like, what if you have one of these co-occurring things? Like, if I have general anxiety disorder, speaking from experience, no, I don't want to have to keep track of all these other factors and worry that, like, did I start too late? Did I start too early? Like, I would rather just have this baseline, because I feel like, and
it's probably
all these co-occurring things, you could probably benefit from it anyway.
Yeah, I would imagine just the cyclical dosing to be for the core PMD rather than the variant one, because I would think with the variant, like for bipolar, if you're already prone to or taking medication to regulate your emotional levels or your brain chemistry, then if you're going to add something to that, adding it just part of the time might be way worse.
Yeah.
Because then you end up with that same drop off.
Well, and that's my thought, is like, if I want to, so like PMDD, the whole nature of it is that it's happening with these cyclical changes. I want to create as solid a foundation to cut down on variability as I can. So to me, that would be taking, even if you're just taking a low dose, taking it every day.
Yeah. But what do I know?
Right.
It's interesting that they have two different ways of treating it, though.
Right.
Like with the same medicine.
Right.
But I guess if it works for those patients, then like do what works.
Yeah. Yeah. Ultimately, like whatever is most effective for you.
Yeah.
And keeps you like the best maintained. They also prescribe birth control pills. They do have the specific things that are in the birth control pills to treat the PMDD. I'm not going to try and pronounce those because I'm not doing great with that today. There's also been
The
things.
crazy words aren't getting you.
No, it's the basic ones. That's true. Things like Xanax have also been studied, but then there's like a risk of abuse. Plus, like, it can ultimately cause like depressive symptoms. So, they're not really shown that to like really be a benefit. They do recommend over-the-counter pain relievers like aspirin and ibuprofen to help with the physical symptoms. Thanks a lot.
Oh, take an anti-inflammatory to help with the inflammation.
Yeah, that's all.
What should I do since I can't take NSAIDs?
Hey, so you are gonna come in for an IUD. Take some Advil before you come in. That'll fix it. They also recommend stress management, because that's one we haven't heard before. And cognitive behavioral therapy has also been found to be effective. So like,
Yeah.
and that's really going to be more of a, I understand what's happening. I know that this happens every month, which I will say cognitive behavioral was super helpful for me with seasonal affective and unpacking and understanding like this happens to me every year.
Yeah, I feel like that is to me the best part of therapy is having that person there to be like, okay, this is what's happening and like blah 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 blah, and then them saying like, okay, well, what if you said this next time? Could you go for just a 5-minute walk? Then like, and it's just having that person there to kind of like work through ways to cope with what's going on, because again, like, it's not going to cure it, but having a third party who's not disinterested, but they're not so close to you,
right,
that it comes across as
they have more perspective on it, right?
Like, whereas if it's your partner or your parents saying like, well, why don't you just do da 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 da? Well,
It's
fuck you.
Yeah, it's that Michael Jordan, and I took that personally.
Right, like, and it's like, well, it might be a helpful thing, but like, I don't want it. Like, I don't want you to tell me what to do.
Right, like, and I think having somebody be like, well, remember, you've struggled with this before. Remember when this was going on and you had a hard time with that? And I'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. Yes. So I think it is helpful to kind of just unpack things in like almost like a clinical way where you have somebody be like, nope, this is something that happens a lot. And remember last time we did this and this was helpful. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. I'm a human being.
Good point.
Fine. So that's PMS and PMDD. I thought it was very interesting.
It is.
I did not know a lot about PMDD. Turns out it's a real wild.
I mean, I didn't know a lot about PMS either.
Also
apparently,
that.
So
Also that.
That is wild. I didn't realize that. I guess it's not optional, but like not universal.
Right. Like I thought everybody just had it.
Same. And that, again, like, everything's a spectrum, but like the degree to which you have PMS just varied. Like, just like your period can vary between people. Like, so yeah, no, I was good job. I was very surprised.
Thanks. And you know, I'm sure another hormone-based thing will come up and we'll be like, oh, we should have done that. And then there will be some kind of continuation to the series at some point.
As usual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we fly by the seat of our pants.
Whee!
Kind of. There's like a very good balance between flying by the seat of our pants and being prepared ahead of time.
Yeah, we're prepared ahead of time. It's just like where we go. It's kind of like Candyland, where you can like end up on like one of those special spots and you slip back down or whatever.
Exactly like Candyland.
Yeah.
I wish there was Reese's in it right now.
I had a Snickers bar yesterday that was in my freezer that I had forgotten about. It was really good.
Man, Trader Joe's, they sell those little, they're like Reese's, but like little cups, and they sell dark chocolate ones, and I put those in the freezer and like almost break my teeth every time, and oh, it's so good.
I know, I have to like shove it into the back so it's on like my premolars.
Yeah.
Because I'm afraid that I'll hurt my front teeth, but
back
whatever,
teeth.
worth it.
I don't need molars for chewing. Only candies that are frozen. I don't know why chocolate is so much better to be out of the freezer.
Oh, there's something
M&M's in the freezer?
Friendly's had the best sundaes.
They did have really good sundaes.
God, they were so good.
Well, clearly we're hungry.
I guess it's time to break for lunch.
Guess we should have something to eat. And make sure to tune in next week, next Thursday. We'll see you next Thursday.
Oh my God. We will have a new episode for you next
Sorry.
Thursday. I think, yeah, because this will come out May 4th. Oh, may the 4th be with you.
She got so excited just now.
It's also Cole's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Cole. And like worst case scenario, maybe next week you hear a fun Patreon episode. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like we said, seat of our pants.
But either way, yeah, make sure you're subscribed and get your friends subscribed. And...
Yeah. Patreon is so fun. We have so much fun over there. Just the two of us just entertaining ourselves. Riffing. I have something for Patreon. Okay, we never know what it is. And then we sit down and one of us just did a deep dive on something random that...
It's fun.
Maybe it's about necrophilia. We don't know.
Not totally related to the original concept of the podcast. And yet, we got it in there.
Make it work. So we'll see you next week.
Whee!
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be here next Thursday with another episode to tingle your ear holes. In the meantime, the best way to support us is to follow us on Instagram at @thebarisAnkleHigh and to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review on your preferred podcast streaming platform. It seems really simple, but it really is the best way to help us out, especially whenever you can actually write out a review. Great news! We have a new merch store that ships internationally and allows you to customize your merch on an endless array of products. You can head over to bit.ly/anklehighmerch to check it all out. If you want even more ankle high hot takes in your life and have a few dollars to spare, you can also join our Patreon at patreon.com/thebarisAnkleHigh. There's 3 different tiers to choose from: $2 toe rings, $5 anklets, and $10 limbo champions. Everybody gets monthly horoscopes written by yours truly. Anklets get bi-weekly Dysfunction Junction episodes, and Limbo Champions get all of that plus ad-free episodes, and they get added to our close friends list on Instagram. So head on over to patreon.com/thebarisAnkleHigh and join today. Until next Thursday, remember to be kind to yourself because the bar is ankle high.